Some say it was 5 years in the making, and it's now in the history books.
And now that the fight is over, many fans are able to...
2017. Floyd "Money" Mayweather walked out of an MGM Grand Sportsbook in Las Vegas after betting his whole bank account. He was 40 years old, worth an estimated $560 million, responsible for going 50 to 0 inches professional boxing, the only undefeated champion to retire at the top. Just months earlier, he'd made $275 million in one night beating Conor McGregor. Now, he was broke enough to need a loan that nobody would give him. The losses took 12 months. The fortune took 20 years to build. This is the story of how the greatest defensive boxer in history got knocked out by the one opponent he couldn't slip his own addiction. How a man nicknamed Money ended up needing money. How 1 year of betting 6 figures per game destroyed what 2 decades of perfect performances had built. And how the casinos that once paid him millions to promote their sportsbooks ended up taking everything back. Stay until the end because we're breaking down the complete story, the childhood that created the compulsion, the wins that fed the addiction, the night everything changed, and the desperate cycle that keeps him fighting at 48 years old when he should be enjoying retirement as an undefeated legend. Floyd Joy Mayweather Jr. was born the 24th of February, 1977 in Grand Rapids, Michigan, into a family where boxing wasn't just a sport, it was the only way out. His father, Floyd Mayweather Sr., was a professional boxer who fought Sugar Ray Leonard. His uncles, Roger and Jeff Mayweather, were both professional fighters. Before Floyd could walk, he was being groomed to hit back. But here's what shaped Floyd more than the boxing his father's absence. Floyd Sr. was in and out of prison throughout Floyd's childhood, serving time for drug trafficking. Young Floyd watched his mother struggle with addiction. He grew up in poverty so severe that at times they had no electricity, no running water. He'd sleep on a mattress infested with roaches. His earliest memories weren't of birthday parties or Christmas presents. They were of watching his mother use drugs, of not having food, of being 8 years old and understanding that money meant survival. Not comfort, survival. That distinction matters because it explains everything that came later. At age 7, Floyd started boxing seriously, not because he loved the sport, but because it was the only path he could see out of Grand Rapids poverty. His uncle Roger trained him with obsessive intensity. If Floyd showed weakness, Roger would beat him, literally beat him to toughen him up. By his teenage years, Floyd had developed a skill set that would make him unstoppable. Lightning-fast reflexes, defensive genius that made him almost impossible to hit cleanly, and the ability to endure punishment without breaking. But he'd also developed something else, a desperate need to prove he'd escape poverty permanently. He named himself Money for a reason. It wasn't just ego or branding. It was a declaration. I will never be that poor kid again. Floyd's professional career started the 11th of October, 1996, when he knocked out Roberto Apodaca in the second round. He was 19 years old, fighting for a purse of $2,500. Within 8 years, he'd be making millions per fight. First, he dominated the super featherweight division, winning his first world title in 1998, then lightweight, then welterweight. Each jump in weight class brought bigger purses, bigger audiences, bigger validation. By 2007, Floyd had figured out something that other fighters hadn't. Boxing wasn't just about winning, it was about selling. His fight against Oscar De La Hoya generated $136 million in revenue, with Floyd making over $20 million. He'd learned to trash talk, to create drama, to make people pay to watch him fight. The De La Hoya fight proved a template: create controversy, guarantee victory, collect check, repeat. Floyd understood that an undefeated record wasn't just about legacy, it was a business asset that made every fight more valuable. He became a PPV superstar, topping Forbes' highest paid athletes list in 2012 and 2013. Then came the fight that would define his career financially, Manny Pacquiao, the 2nd of May 2015. The bout generated $600 million in revenue. Floyd's cut was approximately $250 million for one night of work, the biggest payday in boxing history. By the time he retired after beating Andre Berto in September 2015, Floyd Mayweather had made over $700 million in his boxing career. He was 38 years old, undefeated at 49-0, and rich beyond anything the poor kid from Grand Rapids could have imagined. But here's where the problem started. Floyd had spent his entire adult life in a cycle. Fight, make millions, prove you're still valuable, repeat. That cycle had defined him for 20 years, and addictive cycles don't just stop because you retire. Between 2015 and 2017, Floyd Mayweather's lifestyle became as famous as his boxing record. He bought a custom-built $25 million mansion in Las Vegas, not just any house, but a sprawling estate with a movie theater, 2 car garage, and 2 4-hour security. He purchased an $18 million watch, not a typo, $18 million for one timepiece studded with diamonds. He owned a fleet of luxury cars worth tens of millions, multiple private jets for impulse trips to Dubai or Paris, and jewelry worth millions that he'd wear casually to the grocery store. But more than the spending, Floyd became known for gambling. Massive gambling on a scale most people couldn't comprehend. He'd post Instagram photos of winning betting slips $200,000 bets on NBA games that won $400,000 in 48 minutes. $815,000 on an NFL game that netted $626,923. Weekend runs where he'd bet $350,000 total and walk away with $827,000. His Instagram captions were legendary. "I'm getting paid while watching others entertain and perform. I don't do anything for free." He'd post pictures of himself in bed surrounded by literal stacks of cash from gambling wins, $100 bills piled so high they covered the sheets. His money team members would go sportsbook to sportsbook across Vegas, placing six-figure bets on his behalf because Floyd was too recognizable to do it himself without causing a scene. The wins were real and documented. Floyd was actually good at sports betting. He studied matchups obsessively, watched film on teams like he was still preparing for fights, bet heavy on his convictions, and won enough that major casinos like FanDuel and Paddy Power paid him endorsement deals worth millions to promote their sports books. But nobody posts their losses, and Floyd never did. That should have been the first warning sign. Behind the Instagram highlights, a dangerous pattern was forming. Floyd would bet $450,000 across 3 NFL games, win 2, lose 1, profit $320,000. But that required having nearly $500,000 in liquid cash to risk in the first place. A bad week could cost millions. A bad month could cost tens of millions. And there were bad weeks and bad months that nobody ever saw. And Floyd was gambling every single day. Not occasionally, not weekends only. Every single day. As he told ESPN Radio in an interview that should have raised more alarms, every day, you have to find one game that you truly believe in and truly feel you've got the ups, and that's the one that you load up on. Every day, loading up, 6 figures minimum, sometimes 8 figures if he really felt confident. His friend and enemy 50 Cent later said it best. He gambles on halftimes and things like that. He shows what his wins are, never shows what the losses are. 50 knew what nobody else wanted to acknowledge. The losses were massive and mounting. The warnings were there for anyone paying attention. Bleacher Report published an article in 2012 titled "Floyd Mayweather: How Gambling Could Impact Money's Latter Boxing Years." The analysis was eerily prophetic. If Floyd didn't get his gambling under control, he'd end up fighting past his prime, desperately trying to fund his addiction, tarnishing an otherwise perfect career. The article identified the 3 phases of gambling addiction and noted Floyd was already showing signs of being in the second phase, the losing phase, where the gambler starts chasing losses and betting bigger to recover. But Floyd was living in Las Vegas, literally surrounded by casinos offering him unlimited credit, with MGM and Caesars Properties treating him like royalty because they knew he'd eventually give it all back. He had money team members whose job was to place bets for him. He was convinced he was smarter than the house, that his sports knowledge gave him an edge that would overcome the mathematical advantage casinos hold. It was the perfect storm for gambling addiction, unlimited resources, unlimited access, unlimited ego, and zero accountability. Nobody around Floyd would tell him to stop because everybody around Floyd worked for Floyd. And telling your boss he has a gambling problem is a quick way to get fired from the money team. 2017 started as Floyd's greatest financial triumph. 2017 started as Floyd's greatest financial triumph. On August 26, he came out of retirement to fight Conor McGregor in what was essentially a boxing exhibition, a UFC fighter trying to box against the best defensive boxer in history. The result was predictable. Mayweather won by 10th round TKO, improved to 50-0, and made approximately $275 million. $275 million for one fight, the biggest single payday of his career. Before the fight, Floyd tried to bet $400,000 cash on himself at the M Casino Sportsbook. He wanted to bet on the fight ending under 9.5 rounds and on himself winning by knockout. The casino wouldn't allow it legal concerns about fighters betting on themselves. Floyd was so frustrated he left without placing the bet. He later gave a friend $400,000 to bet on his behalf, but they only allowed an $87,000 wager. That's important context because it shows Floyd's mindset. He'd just made the biggest payday in boxing history, and he was still trying to bet hundreds of thousands more on the outcome. The compulsion wasn't about needing money, it was about the action, the rush, the validation of winning. What happened next is where the story gets dark. Between August 2017 and September 2018, Floyd Mayweather allegedly lost $50 million gambling. The number came from Las Vegas gambling sources who spoke to IB Fantasy Sports and Maxim. The casinos won't confirm it publicly, they protect their whales, but multiple independent sources reported the same figure, $50 million. In 12 months, despite starting the year with a $275 million payday, the evidence supporting the claim is damning. Floyd stopped posting his winning betting slips on Instagram for the first time in years. The photos of cash piles disappeared. The flexing stopped. For 18 months, the man who'd built his brand on showing everyone his money went quiet about his gambling wins. Then, in September 2018, Floyd announced a Pacquiao rematch. Nobody wanted it. The first fight had been 3 years earlier. Both fighters were older. The rivalry was stale. But Floyd needed it, because according to those Vegas sources, the McGregor money was gone. $18 million on a watch, $25 million on a mansion, and $50 million lost gambling. The math was brutal. The moment people realized Floyd might be financially desperate changed everything. Conor McGregor's pre-fight trash talk suddenly seemed prescient. Maybe that's why he's in the position he's in, and he had to take this fight. 50 Cent, Floyd's longtime frenemy, started openly mocking him about gambling losses. When Lil Baby admitted losing $8 million in one day at a casino, 50 posted, "I thought only Floyd do shit like that." The pattern became obvious to everyone watching. Make $275 million from McGregor fight. Lose $50 million gambling within a year. Announce Pacquiao rematch. Out of nowhere, the rematch falls through. Announce another exhibition fight. Repeat forever. The Pacquiao rematch never materialized into a real bout. Instead, Floyd started doing exhibitions fighting YouTube celebrity Logan Paul in June 2021, Japanese kickboxer Tenshin Nasukawa, YouTuber Deji Olatunji. Fights that had no competitive merit but generated millions in easy money. These weren't the moves of a savvy businessman protecting his 50-0 record. These were the moves of someone who needed cash flow, fast. In 2024, 50 Cent revealed in interviews that he and Floyd weren't speaking because of their different relationships with money. Floyd was trapped in a cycle: make money, gamble it; make more money, gamble it. The addiction was controlling his career decisions. Tax issues compounded the problem. In 2009, Floyd owed the IRS $5.6 million in back taxes. They'd filed a $6.17 million lien against his property. Gambling winnings are fully taxable, but losses are only deductible if you itemize and keep detailed records, which most gamblers don't do. Floyd was probably paying millions in taxes on his big wins, while his losses went undeducted. By 2025, at age 48, Floyd Mayweather should have been comfortably retired, enjoying his undefeated legacy and his hundreds of millions in career earnings. Instead, he was still announcing exhibition fights, still promoting his money brand, still living in Vegas surrounded by casinos. The greatest defensive boxer in history couldn't defend himself from the most predictable opponent, house odds, and addiction. Floyd Mayweather's gambling addiction exposes something the sports world doesn't want to admit. Making hundreds of millions doesn't cure financial insecurity. Sometimes it makes it worse. Floyd grew up with nothing, roaches in his mattress, no electricity, watching his mother struggle with addiction while his father was in prison. That kind of poverty creates scars that money can't heal. Every dollar Floyd made as a professional boxer was proof he'd escaped that life, and every dollar he lost gambling threatened that proof. The psychology of gambling addiction follows 3 phases. Phase 1. Winning. Big wins, increasing bet sizes, confidence that you're smarter than the house. Floyd lived here for years, posting his wins, building his reputation as a successful sports bettor. Phase 2. Losing. Chasing losses, betting bigger to recover, denial about the pattern. This is where Floyd likely was in 2017, betting huge amounts, sometimes winning, often losing, unable to stop. Phase 3. Desperation. Hopelessness, damaged relationships, arrests, financial ruin. Floyd hasn't hit rock bottom publicly, but the exhibition fights and constant need for paydays suggest he's closer than most people realize. The tragic irony is that Floyd's nickname, Money, became both his brand and his prison. He built an identity around being rich, around winning, around never losing. That identity made it impossible to admit he had a problem. How can Money Mayweather admit he's losing money? How can the greatest defensive boxer admit he can't defend himself from himself? His story also shows how casinos work. They didn't need to cheat Floyd or manipulate him. They just had to give him unlimited credit, comp him penthouses, make him feel like a VIP, and wait. The house edge is patient. It compounds over volume. And when someone's betting 6 figures daily, the volume adds up fast. Floyd's estimated net worth is now $500 million, down from $560 million at his peak. For someone who made over $1 billion in career earnings, having only $500 million proves the gambling losses are real. So what's the final verdict on Floyd Money Mayweather? In the ring, 50-0. Perfect, undefeated. Arguably the greatest defensive boxer of all time. Against the casinos, unknown, but probably down at least $50. $100 million over his career, maybe more. What we know for certain, Floyd made over $1 billion boxing. He should be worth close to that amount. Instead, he's worth approximately half. The missing $500 million went somewhere gambling losses, taxes, lavish spending. But the biggest leak was gambling. What we know from the evidence, he lost $50 million in 2017 alone, according to Vegas sources. He stopped posting winning tickets for 18 months. He announced a Pacquiao rematch nobody wanted immediately after the losses. He keeps fighting exhibitions at 48 years old. 50 Cent mocks his gambling constantly. The transformation is complete and tragic. The poor kid from Grand Rapids who fought his way to becoming the richest athlete in the world is now trapped in the same cycle that destroys most gamblers: win, lose, chase, repeat. Except Floyd's stakes are millions instead of hundreds. He gambled with his life when he chose boxing as his escape from poverty. He gambled with his health every time he stepped into the ring. He gambled with his legacy when he fought past his prime. And he gambled with his fortune at Vegas sportsbooks until the casinos took back more than he could afford to lose. The casinos didn't need to beat Floyd Mayweather. They just needed to wait him out. Give him enough rope, enough credit, enough VIP treatment, and let the house edge do its work. Now, at 48, Floyd still fights. Not because he loves boxing, not because he needs the competition, but because he needs the money. The man nicknamed Money became the very thing he fought his whole life to escape someone desperate for a payday. The story isn't over. Floyd could still get help, admit the problem, walk away from gambling completely. But that requires vulnerability, requires admitting weakness, requires destroying the money brand he's built over decades. Until then, the cycle continues. Fight, get paid, gamble, lose, need another fight. The undefeated champion defeated by the one opponent. He couldn't outbox his own compulsion. In the end, Floyd Mayweather proved something boxing champions have known forever. The hardest fight isn't in the ring. It's the one you have with yourself when nobody's watching and the cameras are off. And sometimes, even champions lose those fights. Remember the name. Forget the glorification. That's the story. That's the truth. That's all.